Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ibadur Rahman Azahidi. Study international relations. I want to make presentations regarding absent substitutes about the matters of subject international organizations administrations under the title The Role of IMF in Handling the Economics Crisis in Indonesia. The multidimensional crisis that occurred in Asia in 1997 was a very unfortunate event for countries in the region. The value of the currencies of these countries in the Asian region has fallen rapidly and drastically. Call it Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and South Korea. Indonesia was the worst affected country. The value of the rupiah, which was usually around 200 and 2,900 at that time, could reach 70,000. When views in terms of percentage, South Korea has decreased 39% for won. Thailand means minus 37.5%, and Indonesians 73.6 for the curse of money. The decline in the value of rupiah result in an inflation of foreign debt, which result in the bankrupt of company that were unable to pay their debt in foreign currency because the amount had increased to 4 till 7 times. So can it be said that the crisis that occurred in Indonesia in 1797 had a systematic impact? In fact, the, the decline in the rupiah had positive and negative impact. Exporters have felt the most positive impact. This is because when the value of the rupiah drops, their merchandise sells well. This means that the decline and the demand for Indonesian goods is increasing in the world. Although has a positive impact, the negative impact is far more. Per capita income in terms of US dollar fell rapidly from one dollars to 200 till $500 at the height of the crisis, and the foreign debt, public and private, increased several fold. At the end of the September in 1997, the Indonesian government's external debt was 137.52 billion, and uh, private debt on each persons of Indonesian people have 73,000 billion dollars. As a result of the crisis, Indonesians, which had to try to get out of the crisis, finally depended on the assistance of the IMF and all the world financial institutions to restore their economic situations. However, as a consequence of depends on such assistance, the government must be willing to comply with the conditions provided by the IMF. Significant change must also be made the government, for example in deregulating regulations relating to market and privatizing a number of economic sectors. Then, from the above background, what did the IMF, as the organizations responsible for the financial system and the international exchange rate to get Indonesians out of the crisis? Before knowing the steps of the IMF, does it have a good impact? Or will it increase Indonesians' burdens? We need to know what the caused Asian country in that time to experience economic crisis through a theoretical approach. theoretical approach, as well as the role and functions of IMF itself. There are approaches that can be used to explain the economic crisis, namely the first generation approach, the generation mm, first generation approach, second generation approach, third generation approach, and etc. I wanna speak about first generation approach. First generation approach was developed by Krugman and Flood and Gerber, which based the analysis on the conditions of a fiscal imbalance that tend to be unstable with the staggering attacks on currencies. This approach assumes that the central banks tends to monetize the fiscal deficit to providing domestic credit, while at the same time trying to maintain a fixed exchange rate. With this condition, uh, limited foreign exchange reverse, the expectations of devaluations has prompted speculators to attack the currency and deplete the foreign exchange reserve in the central bank. The second generation approach. This approach, developed by Diamond and Deving, which is based its analysis of the trade of the conditions faced by the government, namely between maintaining a fixed exchange rate and establishing an expansionary monetary policy to maintain a fixed exchange rate. Speculators will tend to attack when there is an indications of a lack government commitment to maintaining the exchange rate. In this case, the crisis was triggered by worsening economic fundamentals, such as multiple equilibrium growth. Countries with weak economic fundamentals tend to experience crisis. On the other hand, those with strong economic fundamentals tend to avoid crisis, while those in between can experience self-fulfilling speculative expectations. The third generation's approach, developed by Krugman and Corsetti, which includes the role of moral hazard, include investment in analyzing the factor causing the crisis. Moral hazard occurs because of the perceptions that the government is always ready to guarantee or bail out profile companies that face problems. Therefore, there was excessive excessive investment or lending the excessive borrowing. As a result, there was a large accumulations of private sector debt. In bad economic conditions, the governments cannot depend on tax revenue to finance the crisis and tend to cover the deficit from the currency of the nation. This will form expectation of future inflationary, which in turn trigger speculative attack on currency. According to Miranda Giltum, as quotes by Delirianov, the crisis that occurred in Indonesia and other Asian countries could be explained by third generation's approach. By third generation's approach theory developed which developed by Krugman and Corsetti, in condition to that there was an element of deliberations by parties who commit crimes and the capital market on varying currency exchange rates and financial instrument, the destructive force that speculator can rig the tremendous the fund they have can reach hundreds of billion US dollars with the possibility of leverage or can borrow 10 times the stake on the money market that works 24 hours a day, and the most feared speculator in this world. Uh, According to Gertz scores, which on this were the one that caused the decline in British pound. Okay. Meanwhile, Bob Sugeng Hadiwinata, in his book, quote, from the opinion of economic expert identifying three things that cause economic crisis. First, productivity gaps phenomenon. Second, trap disequilibrium phenomenon. And the last, the phenomenon of loan addictions. Okay, maybe just this for me. And as a thanks, and I apologize where I have any mistake for my speech. Finally, I say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.